A quick glance at the globe can be pretty depressing. Vaccination rates in many countries are abysmally low.
In some African countries, take Sudan, the number of vaccines that have been delivered, it's about 3 vaccines per 100 people. Compare that to Australia, where it's well over 130 vaccines per 100 people.
We need to share our doses. Papua New Guinea on our doorstep has a very low level of vaccination.
Professor Eddie Holmes is one of the world's leading evolutionary biologists.
I think that's a humanitarian disaster. I think it's an ethical problem. I think we need to give those people vaccinations first.
While equitable distribution is progressing, some countries are using the pandemic to shore up their influence.
Certainly we have seen a level of vaccine diplomacy during the course of this pandemic. And you know what? That is actually not a bad thing if people are stepping up to deliver vaccines into communities.
On our doorstep, the island nation of Kiribati received 14,000 doses from the Australian government. The Chinese delivered 6 times that amount.
It's not enough just to deliver a bunch of vaccine. You actually have to think about the delivery of that vaccine into arms.
So should we be giving priority to poorer nations ahead of booster shots in richer countries like Australia?
We think that you can walk and chew gum. We don't think, and the WHO agrees with us, that we should be boosting everyone in the population while we have huge parts of the world who've received such low levels of vaccination.
I think people who are immunocompromised, people who are in the higher risk of dying of COVID, the real risk groups, they should be given boosters.
After 19 months, the big question is, what COVID variant comes next? And it won't necessarily originate in a poorer country with low vaccination rates.
In places like Australia, we have quite a high level of immune people now, but eventually that immunity will start to wane. That's going to select for a certain type of variant. In countries with low vaccination, what you're going to get is much higher case numbers, much higher transmission, much more diversity.
Are we ready for the next pandemic? There are more people in the world, people are closer to animals, so the risk is real.
Despite that risk, Eddie Holmes says he's optimistic.
I think we can control this virus to a certain level. I think it's always going to be there. I think there will always be mortality. We need to have kind of in our freezers ready to go vaccines that can recognise what might emerge next. These universal vaccines that can recognise different strains of flu, different strains of coronavirus that exist in animals. So that's like almost the holy grail of protecting the population in the future.
And to make that happen, governments need to act.
$3.5 billion is the amount we think we need over the next 5 years to do this work. For Australia to pay its fair share in relation to that funding ask, it would cost us over the next 5 years a total of $20 million a year. I really hope that we can see the Australian government invest in this mission to make sure we are ready and we don't have to go through this process again.
Gosh, I do a lot of work with UNICEF, and the links they go to get vaccinations in arms, like physically the links to try and reach people in remote areas, and you think we rock up to a vaccination centre, have a jab and move on with our day, you know, and the work that they're doing in many other charities in the space is extraordinary to make sure that people have access.
Oh, it's so important, so important.
With so much content online, it's sometimes hard to keep up with it all. And let's face it, who has the time? The Project YouTube has you covered with the stories that matter. Hit subscribe for a daily list of the news that you need to know.